Guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to talk about the 5 things that you should avoid if you want to get shredded. But first of all, guys, if you're new around here, please like and subscribe, and if you haven't already, head over to the link in my description and download my free transformation timeline. This shows you the step-by-step process that I took to transform my body from this to this, and it lets you know the lessons that I learned along the way so that you don't have to make the same mistakes that I made. So some of you are probably wondering, why should I listen to this guy? And as I say, I've got almost 15 years experience training now. I've competed multiple times and I've placed every single time. I've also been coaching for 6 years now, and I've had hundreds of results from my clients, plenty before and afters, and a lot of afters as well, which is something I pride myself on. It's not just people getting in shape, they stay in shape. So across the years, I've learned a thing or two about building muscle and losing body fat. So listen in if you want to know what you should avoid if you want to get shredded. So number 1, my top 5 things to avoid if you want to get shredded is sustainable diets. Like, what part of a fat loss diet should be sustainable? A fat loss diet or a shred diet should have a solid start and finish. You should know when it begins and you should know when it's going to end, because otherwise we end up just like continuously dieting but not really getting anywhere. I mean, I've seen it time and time again with clients, and I get that not everyone wants to take a really kind of hard approach and they don't want to really like give 100%, so to speak. But you know, ultimately the people who get the best results are dieting for a set period of time. There's no like endless dieting where it goes on and on and on and on. Eventually you should finish your dieting phase, go into a reverse diet, and then bring your calories back up to either a maintenance phase or into a building phase. But we should not be in a fat loss phase for the foreseeable. So sustainable dieting shouldn't really be a thing. Why should your fat loss diet be sustainable if it's going to end at a point? Fat loss diets have to be unsustainable by nature because they're not going to last forever. And if it's sustainable, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough. That's a cold hard reality, and you're not going to get shredded doing a sustainable diet. Number 2 would be changing your food sources too often. I'm not against flexible dieting by any means. In fact, you know, I was very flexible during my photo shoot prep there, and you know, I would often swap things in and out and make it work in terms of the macros. But I think when people do this too often, it leaves too much of a margin for error. So like, if you're sticking to a meal plan, right, and you're eating the same foods every single day and they're measured out to the gram and everything's weighed and everything's prepared properly and we're not adding any hidden calories from cooking oils or sauces or seasonings or anything like that, or drinks, you know, then when you make a change, you know, you're changing it relevant to that. You know, it makes sense. You know, if you're on 2,000 calories and it's all measured out properly, then you go down to like 1,900 calories, okay? That's it, okay? That's a drop in calories and you will see progression at that. But when we're tracking macros and when we're tracking calories, you tend to find when we're changing food sources every day, there can quite easily be tracking errors. Whether that's human error, whether you're maybe tracking like, you know, cooked rice, but actually you're having like raw rice. So for example, 100 grams of cooked weight rice might only be like 160 calories, but 100 grams of raw weight rice will be about 360 calories. So I've often seen that mistake being made. But also if you're like scanning packages, or if you're like eating out of a shop or something like that, or restaurants, there's going to be tracking errors. Even if it like you scan the back of a package and it says 400 calories, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you've just had. If it's like a wrap out of Tesco, for example, like a meal deal thing, well, it'll be based on the average chicken wrap, for example, that they've made, not necessarily the one that you're eating. So there can be tracking errors with that. And if you want to be more accurate and if you want to get shredded, you're going to be eating the same foods pretty much every single day. Again, I'm not saying there can't be no variance at all, but you want to keep it mostly the same for better results. Number 3 would be Hyrox or circuit training or classes. Look, if I thought that was the best way to get shredded, you see me going about with a headband on and my fucking backpack and all my Hyrox stickers on the back, because ultimately it's not the best way to get shredded. And I think this misconception comes from the fact that a lot of the guys that do Hyrox, they are in great shape, they are shredded, right? And the reality of it is they've probably done years of resistance training before they've done Hyrox. That's the thing. If they've got any muscle about them at all, they've likely done years of resistance training. They've likely trained like a bodybuilder before, and Hyrox is a bit of like a midlife crisis for them. Again, like I like to slag it off, but look, if you do Hyrox and that's your thing, then great. And it will burn calories. Ultimately, it will burn calories. But it's cardio at the end of the day. And you wouldn't skip resistance training to do cardio if you want to get shredded, would you? So doing Hyrox instead of doing your resistance training is pretty much the same. Now I do have some clients that do Hyrox, believe it or not. For all the slagging off I do of it, I do have a few clients that do it, and those clients are still doing resistance training sessions as well. And they understand that maybe like their main goals might not be to get quite as shredded as some of my other clients, but ultimately they want that blend of performance and looks, and you can get that through doing Hyrox and through doing resistance training. You've just got to kind of make the program work. But ultimately, if your main goal is to get as shredded as possible and look more like a kind of bodybuilder or be in the best shape possible, then doing Hyrox isn't going to be the best way to get you there. You better focusing on your resistance training, making sure you're doing progressive training in the gym and essentially training like a bodybuilder. Number 4 would be leaving it too late to start. This is something that I see time and time again. Right now it's the end of April, and no doubt I'll get some inquiries in the next month that'll be like, oh yeah, I'm going on holiday in June. That's right, okay. So you've got the month of May to lose 20 kilos. I think that's probably where it comes from, to be honest. Like, a lot of people probably don't realise how much body fat they have to lose. Like, ultimately, unless you're like sitting around, 15 to 17% body fat anyway, then you're going to need longer than a couple of months. You're going to need a lot longer than that. And again, depending on your starting point, if you've not even got like a solid base in place, you've not got a foundation in place, you might need a couple of months of just building up the habits, building up the foundations, and just getting a good starting point before you even go into a proper dieting phase. And then after the diet as well, like you can't just like finish a dieting phase and that's it. You can't just go on holiday after a diet and then that's it, because ultimately what you'll end up doing is packing all that fat back on, and you'll end up in a really bad place. And trust me, because that's what I done when I first started getting shredded. I would pack all the fat back on really quickly, and then I would end up looking at myself in the mirror, hating how I look, and then I'd end up trying to diet again to try and lose some of that fat, but then I wouldn't be able to stick to it because basically my hunger hormones would be all over the place, and I would end up just yo-yoing between dieting and gaining and never really spend long enough doing either. So I ended up making no progress whatsoever, and it was just a really difficult way of maintaining. If I wanted to maintain, I could have done that a lot easier than what I was doing. So ultimately, if you leave it too late to start, you're not giving yourself enough time to get shredded, and if you're not thinking of the long-term picture, then you're not giving yourself enough time to actually turn it into something you can maintain, or even turn it into a proper gaining phase after it. So when you're looking to get in shape, there's no time to start like the present. Like, the sooner you start, the better. But ultimately, understand that you are going to need more time than what you think. And finally, number 5 would be wasting money on fat loss pills or supplements that you don't need. Now, I'm not saying that all these supplements are completely useless. In fact, I actually done a video where I tested out some fat burners, and my opinion of them is that, yeah, it will give you an extra 1 or 2%, right? It will help. And if you are chasing, like, bodybuilding stage lean, then it might be something you want to look at. But for most of us who just want to get lean for going on holiday, or just want to get lean for a photo shoot, like, I don't think that we need to be spending money on this kind of thing. I think, people are always looking for the new shiny object. They're looking for something else to do that's like fancy, or, something that's going to boost their metabolism or boost their testosterone or whatever, or boost their fat burning. But ultimately, most people just need to focus on the basics. They need to focus on nailing their nutrition, nailing their training, doing their steps, doing their cardio. And supplement wise, get yourself a good whey protein, get yourself some creatine. That's basically all you need. That is basically all you need. You don't need a huge cupboard full of supplements to help you get shredded. So those are my top 5 things I would avoid if I was looking to get shredded this year. As I say, guys, I've been in this game a long time. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, so I would take this advice and I would use it for your own journey. And if you haven't already, guys, as I say, head over to the link in the description and download my transformation timeline. It'll tell you more about the mistakes I've made and how you can avoid them.